Hello everyone, it's Jen at Pro Organizer Studio. Welcome again to our Inspired Organizer chat series. This is the sixth chat we have done the fifth of six chats that we have done in the past 2 weeks. And this one is really special. Beth Smith is here with us tonight to share a little bit about her business journey, her story. Gotta be honest, like right up front, here's the reason why I asked her to come on. We get a lot of questions in our email, typically around the time when Inspired Organizer is enrolling, and people say, I really want to do this career. I really want to start this as a side business. I really want to transition from my, full-time job into this part-time thing so that I can have more time with my grandchildren and do other things. They come and say, they say, is this only for young women? Is your group only for young girls? And I have to write back and say, no, absolutely not. So if this is your fear, or if you have been secretly wondering to yourself, and I do see Beth is there, I'm going to have her on the broadcast in just a moment. If you have been secretly wondering to yourself if you are too old to become a professional organizer, this is the chat that you want to watch, because Beth is going to talk very openly from her experience in reinventing herself in this career after the age of 50. And I know she can tell that story better than I can, so that's why I'm so glad to have her with us. There she is. Hey, Beth.
Hey.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
You look great. Thank you so much for being here and sharing with us tonight. I'm really, really, really excited. So I gave a little introduction, and I hope that you do share this with some of your followers and from your podcast called Women Reinvented. I definitely want to tell people about your podcast, and that they should definitely go subscribe and listen to it as well.
Yeah, I did start a podcast, and we talked. You kind of entered this starting a little bit by talking about age, and since I'm a little older, I thought the best way to hide that was to be in a podcast, and so here I am with you on Facebook Live. But
I'm so excited.
I do have a podcast that I felt was important to start, because so many of my clients and people that I work with are reinventing themselves. So my podcast is Woman Reinvented, and I do interview women who are reinventing themselves by decluttering, by preparing themselves for different life. And so that's sort of been an offshoot of the work that I do as a professional organizer.
That is really special. And so I appreciate the chance to get to interview you tonight. So tell us some of your story.
Well, I did the whole corporate thing forever. I started out when my kids were little, and I started in a physician recruiting job so I could work from home. And that turned into a career of never working from home and always being gone, and moving to the corporate office and being on the road. And I did that for about 20 some years. And I finally just had enough of that. So my last job with that kind of company, I had sort of downsized my role, and I was working from home, so I wasn't on the road all the time. But I ended up getting downsized, and which is funny now that I call myself a downsizing specialist.
Yeah.
But I got downsized, and when they said downsized and severance, I didn't hear any more, because I was so done, and I was so ready just to be done with that. So yeah. I started evaluating what I wanted to do. My husband and I, in an effort to continue to have me move out a little bit from that role, we knew at some point that I was going to quit doing that. So we had downsized. I built 2 tiny houses. You know about this. We built a tiny house for our daughter and her, at that point, 1 child, and now there are 3 children and my daughter living in a tiny house. So she gets more kudos than I do, because she lives in about 800 square feet with 3 kids.
Wow.
But then my hubby and I built house number 2, and we live on our property together. So she lives about 800 square feet. We live in about 750 square feet. And then we have a shoffice. I call it it's a shed office. So my hubby, that's about 300 square feet. And then we have just a shed for, junk. And during the year that we were building our second home, we lived in an RV for about a year. So I'm pretty comfortable living tiny.
Yes.
So now, of course, when I go to somebody's house that they've got all kinds of stuff, I'm like, oh, you need to get rid of this stuff. So I try to, not um, put my opinions about that, but we work through that.
Right.
But so many people are just stuck in clutter. And
Yeah.
that's something that I really specialize in and trying to help them through my experience by feeling so free from not having that. So our goal was to live mortgage free. And that was giving me the opportunity to have the kind of out of that corporate stuff. So that's what we're doing. And in that, my husband's in school full time, so I am the major breadwinner. So when um, the opportunity came to go full time in professional organizing, I knew that it had to be a job that I could make enough money to support us. But I also knew that there was some risk, of course, and there are days when I worry that will, because I'm used to having that paycheck every week, right? And that's just not the world that we live in. So, yeah, it's been a real change for me, but a real freedom because, I still have bills. I got to pay for the internet and I got to pay for this, that, and the other thing. And we help with our grandchildren some. And so we have to keep having income. So I do all the things that you would expect that I do, maximizing my income and minimizing my outgo. That's my goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how did you first come across the fact that there was even such a thing as professional organizing
So,
and finding out you get paid for it?
really? So I was the corporate mover, right? And so I got moved from Atlanta to Louisiana to Seattle because I kept accepting different jobs for different companies. I was getting recruited for different jobs. And I would always say to the packers when they would pack me, I'd say, "Do you unpack?" And they would say, "No, ma'am, we don't unpack." I'm like, "What's up
Right.
to unpack?" Because I didn't want to unpack all that stuff and start a new job.
Right.
Um, but I never knew anything about professional organizing. And then I read Marie Kondo's The Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which was part of my downsizing story anyway, and started to
Yeah.
realize there was such a thing as professional organizing. And then I found you guys on YouTube and started watching YouTube, obviously giving away tons of free content. And then I decided I could do that. And it's how I've lived anyway, and it's who I am. Now, my house is not perfect. There are days,
Right.
but I've always sort of tried to be have that under control. There were times when I was living in a 3 or 4 thousand square foot house that it really wasn't in control. It's a lot easier now that there's not so much stuff in my life. But yeah, so that's how I found you guys and how I ended up deciding that this was actually a real job that I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about that decision because I know that there are a lot of women out there who have written to me before and will write me again and say, I'm excited about this. They feel that enthusiasm and they're so excited that this is a thing, but then they stop themselves because they feel like they're too old to do this.
Well, I'm 63 and I'm successful. So I don't think they have to worry about that.
Okay.
When I walk into a house and yeah, sometimes in my mind, I think, oh, they'll think I'm too old. But the reality is most of the people we end up working with are women that are 50 and above. And so they don't really judge me for that. And I'm physically active and I work. In fact, a lot of times I'll say, "Beth, you can sit down. You can take a break." But I work really hard and I'm physically active. And I also subcontract to flush out my business right now. I subcontract for some of the folks that are in the Atlanta market. We have a really supportive environment here where people can do that. And so I work for other people as a subcontractor too. And I don't think anybody really judges me for that, my age.
Tell me, I think the question that I had asked you was, what are some ways that you have modified, like you talked to me yesterday about modifying your work or gearing your work towards being able to physically continue doing it long term.
Right. So I confessed I'm 63. So I don't know at some point if at 73, I'm going to be able to physically do what I'm doing. So I I have started looking at online courses, different things to do. I'm working on a downsizing course because, of course, that's what I do. I've downsized and love that, the freedom that that's given me. So I'm working on that, and I have my podcast, and I'm looking at ways to monetize that. But additionally, as I said, I subcontract for folks so I can pick and choose what I want to do. I also, my other daughter, the one that doesn't live on our property, works as a wedding designer, florist in Atlanta. So I help her. So I have different venues that I can do, but I do, I think something that makes folks worried when they start something that they're this age is that they don't know that they can do all the stuff. The technology can be intimidating. And when I was in corporate, I had people do this work for me. I didn't have to do it. I just say, do it, and they would, right?
Yeah.
But now I have to do it all. So I take care of my own Instagram. I take care of my own Facebook. And so all those technologies are something that I think I'm learning the skills to build those so I can do as much of my work online as I can. I also will put together, I've thought about doing virtual, and but I just haven't really been able to create the virtual presence that I'd like, but I will also do some virtual organizing and, just look at different ways that I can not I like the physicalness of the work now. That's important for me, not to be sitting at a desk. That's one of the reasons I chose this. But at some point, I know that I will need some more combination of both. So that's kind of the direction I'm going.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so just so we can end this on a good note with our tech, what would your final piece of advice for anyone considering joining Inspired Organizer as part of their business journey? What would you say to them?
You're never too old. And the only way to do it is to start and just do it. I felt like I only had so much money to start in launching my business, and I was trying to decide. I laughed and told you earlier that I had decided at the very last minute to join. I was like one of the last ones to get in because as the doors were closing, because I was trying to decide between my local Association of Professional Organizers or Inspired Organizer, and I felt like I had that much money to spend, and they were close to about the same amount. And so I went ahead and joined Inspired Organizer with absolute no regrets because I felt like there was a lot more business acumen experiences that I would get here that I needed for the organizing. I felt like I could do. It was the support, the Facebook group, and I have not regretted choosing that route for myself. So I would suggest,
thank you so much.
If you're on the fence, to do it.
And I have to tell people that I didn't pick on you because you're our oldest member either. There are lots of women who are in that older age group. So I want people to know that when they join, they're not going to be alone. There's definitely women in that stage of life. Like, you're not the only one.
Right. There are a couple of us. There aren't as many, but we need more.
Definitely. Well, there's definitely women who are in that empty nest stage and then moving past that. There are, a couple in their 60s. So thank you so much, Beth. I am so glad that you were here. Sorry again for the technical trouble. And if you can still hear me, I hope you can. Anybody watching, if you have a follow-up question for Beth or missed something that we said, please leave a comment below. And I know she and I will both come back and check those out.
Right.
Like I said, the course enrollment is closing tomorrow night. So please do come and ask your questions. Please check out Beth at Magnolia Organizing and her podcast, Woman Reinvented, which is a fabulous topic, Beth. Thank you so much, Beth. I really appreciate you being here.